want to talk about something, this God idea. So the God idea has been so ingrained in people, so much so that, in my opinion, the real guides are being pushed to the background in many situations, mainly due to ignorance of the existence of the real guides. Now, politicians said that the many developments of man in any field, starting with the discovery of fire, are all attributed to the real guide's attempt to uplift man in every way possible. So there's something an example I want to use here to illustrate how people attribute the real guide's help to the gods. There's the case of this 13-year-old prodigy from Idaho who does exquisite paintings and is in touch with the dimensions beyond. At age 13, she's the main breadwinner for her family, making $100,000 per month. She says God told her to paint. What I want to ask is this not misplaced credit? Giving credit to the calm God rather to the real guides out of ignorance of their existence? Then we find this prevalent many circles. Many of these statements, oh, God told me to do this, God helped me to do that. So, what can you say about this?
Again, we're all here to recognize what life is, and these ideas, really doesn't matter where they come from. It can come from so-called angel or the real guides or the Kalam God itself. Really doesn't care. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. The idea here is that, okay, so you paint. Someone tells you to paint, or you agree to what they said. Fine, you decide that. And the whole idea is to recognize what's taking place. So maybe it's through painting that you will wake up to why you are here, why you decided to come here. Because again, everything is through a decision. There's many individuals that decide not to come here. And so, yes, we hear voices. I met a fella, his name's David Cass. He does the South Spin. Ava and I met him years ago. And he talks to God, etc. And so I had a little conversation with David one time. He's a fun guy. He's actually an engineer up here in, I think it's Venice or Santa Monica. He's not very far away. He's got videos on YouTube there about the South Spin. We use that. I use these little funny things, and they do work. But, his idea is he talks to God. So I asked him, just for the fun of it, and about his God idea, and I wasn't criticizing or whatever. This is his experience, whatever it is. And the question kind of got along the lines of, all right, so you have this relationship with your God, and so what's the idea here, David, with what you're doing or what have you? And I'm not saying I'm correct, but the idea was along the lines of, okay, from what I'm doing and presenting to the world, that he will be rewarded in a way. And I said, well, okay, well, what is the reward that God is going to give you? And he said that I can have my own planet, and that something along the lines, I can have whatever I want on the planet. Kind of like the Muslim idea, if they sacrifice themselves, if they put a bomb to themselves and blow up the bad guys, they go to heaven and there's 100 virgins there, or whatever. Everybody has their idea of it. So it was kind of along those lines, and I saw it very interesting. He's very serious because this is what his God had told him. So in other words, from his view, this is what he's decided, and the individual, whoever it is, has said, well, I'm God, and I'm talking to you directly. So I'm not going to dispute that with anyone. Everybody has their experiences, it's choice, and the end result is what is demonstrated. So overall, what is the benefit of that? So he's going to get his own planet. It's kind of like when you find the magic lamp and you make a wish and things don't quite come out like you think they will. So when he answered it like that, I kind of saw this planet, and it could be didn't say what planet. It's just you're going to get a planet. So again, is it going to be like the moon or Mars or Venus or Saturn or whatever? And all of a sudden you got this planet. It sounds good, doesn't it? It's kind of like somebody telling me, oh, God's going to tell me, oh, you get the beach, Duane, because you're a surfer. Okay, you get to own the whole beach. All right. But doesn't tell me that, hey, everybody else gets to use the beach. And now that I own the beach, I got to maintain the beach. Okay, or I don't. And pretty soon, of course, the beach is going to be a pile of trash. It's going to be so much trash that people can't even get to the beach because of what people do. So I'm looking at this idea that he presented. He didn't see the whole picture. It's like, wow, I'm getting my own planet, and I can do what I want on my own planet. And so again, taking a look at the world today, what do you think the outcome would probably be because of the distorted view that most people have of this life? And this is where the real guidance comes in. So no matter what it is that comes to us, we decide to take part. We decide, for me, it's not the spiritual idea anymore, or all these things. They don't work. These are just cliches. To me, it's simply, does it make sense? I mean, does it really make sense, etc.? Again, I look at the birds fly. I look at the kitties across the street here that I talk to. They don't bother anybody, and what they do makes sense, and they don't harm the natural environment. And if everybody did that and just made sense of their environment, we wouldn't have all this distortion, and we could recognize things a lot better, taking the time to do so. But it is that recognition. So, the God idea is interesting, and whatever people decide. The boys, it's like whatever. It's whatever the statements that people make. Again, does it make sense? So we also here, we're collecting information about certain things because we have to deal with the world. So why is it that a person would buy an air purifier? Would that make sense 200 or 300 years ago? Would it? Would it make sense that you go into the trading post and they got a little sign there. It says, just in today, air purifiers. And so you talk to the guy behind the counter, and it's like, okay, what is this? It's like, well, this is for purifying the air. And you ask the question, do we need to purify the air? Is the air not purified? Well, today it makes sense, doesn't it? But back then it didn't make sense, so it didn't exist. Nor did cell phones and whatever, because again, people were more so using their intuitive nature to deal with the environment. Today, it seems like, we need machines to figure things out. And then most of that, which is coming through, is subliminal and distorted. So, again, this God idea and what have you, in other words, until a person really wants to face themselves and the awesome isness life is, well, then they have to deal with a secondary situation, which is agreeing to something that has been decided to be something, but is it really? And voices and whatever, do they make sense? So it sounds good that, oh, I'm a painter, and you make $100,000 a year or a day or whatever. Okay, well, that sounds really good. But the end result is, according to the monetary system, is this what life is? So again, also, it locks the individual in, doesn't it, to a particular. So there's always two sides to everything. And so I look at the whole picture. I look at the playing field because I'm here to meet the challenge, to present this and deal with all the particulars. But at the same time, making sense with what is taking place every moment. You know, that's a biggie for most people because again, they are attached to their routines and their ideas of things, and that becomes in the way. So they're just thinking that, oh, God told me to do this. That's an idea that you set into motion and you live in that idea. See, the isness is not the same as that. It is not at all. It is always, always an endless openness to recognize. And if that does make sense in your life, go for it. You know, we all do certain things, but that's not my intent. I will utilize these things here if there's a place for them and if they make sense with what I'm doing. Other than that, these are just cutesy ideas. So people talking to God or whatever, or God told me to do this, or God told me to go over here and meet my relatives. Well, that's that individual's journey. But overall, I don't see it has anything to do with the isness. Again, we're in a one-dimensional area, which is a personal area. So this is your personal, you might say communication with God. People have this personal communication, which is fine. And again, it's what a person demonstrates. That's what does or doesn't make sense. And so we have all kinds of people, especially the TV evangelists, that say that God talks to them and etc. and look at what they're doing and what they're demonstrating. And especially the fun part is taking on the challenge to go to the real side. This is all you have to do is go to the real side and confirm this if you're interested. For the most part, I'm not. I don't waste my time looking at this nonsense because, again, I'm just focused on the is and the boys and etc. And so on the real side, you're going to see life is going to show you, demonstrate in some way what this idea is if you're interested, or it will show you in the physical sense what we see here. It will demonstrate something or some message in some way. So I'll give you a real fast example. A fellow over in Malaysia many years ago, he questioned the NUway. He's with the corporation. And then he saw, because he likes to go run and jog, he saw the word run backwards in a reflection. And if you look at the word run backwards in a reflection, it's NUR. And the R represented, he recognized it. He represented the new you. He saw that it represented the new you, and the R represented Rebazar. He saw that immediately. We talked about it. But yet he still went back to the corporation later on. It was his choice. But you see, things can be that subtle if you take the time to recognize them. And that is that the reality that life is so real that, to recognize it, this is your awesome experience if you get it, you see? And it is all about recognition. So aside from personally deciding something and recognizing what is flawlessly real is such a difference, but yet it all encompasses the same thing, but you decide how to figure this out. Yes. So it's the best of everything, but you decide. So yes, thank you for asking. Go ahead, Charles. Yes, so the God idea, that's an individual choice and idea, but the original God idea, which is dog backwards, okay? This is how the reptilians see people, as dogs, bugs, whatever, okay? It's a giggle to them. They created this whole God idea. In other words, they created an idea outside of each person to look to something outside of themselves, like the government. You can think of the government as God and the controllers and etc. And they created the business world. They created all of this because they know that when people look to something outside of themselves, that they can control them. So we use the same idea with the new presentation. I've created the new presentation here as a reference, not a control factor. That becomes the difference. Everything has two sides. Now, they can create things as a reference, to something else, but they don't because they don't recognize the is. I do, so what I create is a reference to the is. What they have created is a reference to their control. That becomes the difference, but you decide, you learn to see how this really is.
Deals with leadership. We find that every leader promises to change things, and that is why people vote them into office. However, deep within them, people hate change and perhaps only pay lip service to it. But now, when a leader talks of change, it means that he wants to take people down a different road. And people need to know where they are going, why they are going there, and what's in it for them to get there. So the new presentation is a paradigm shift concerning the unseen and unheard things of life. And the new man is reaching out to people, and people may want to know where they are going, why the new man wants them to go that way, and what's in it for them. What's in this journey for them. So there are the books, the videos, and the posts all over social media, which talk about this worldwide wake-up call. So against this backdrop of resistance to change, which is very common, can you tell the world why the new way is the way to go? Duane?
Well, I've explained that many times, so what I'll do is explain the funny stuff that we're dealing with here, because you mentioned change, leadership, and change. Okay, let's go off of that first. And so, this word leadership is used, but there are no real leaders here, because realistically, where are they leading people to? They're realistically, basically almost everybody's been bought off. They're leading everybody to a demise. Is that a real leader? And the change idea, let's use Obama as an example. And they've used these ideas before. And for those that saw the marketing ploy of the regime that controls the United States, he used the ideas of change and hope. Okay, so yes, people resist change. I get it. But at the same time, they want it or they don't want it. It's a love-hate relationship. I see how that is. Because even when things aren't working or a benefit, they're still emotionally attached to the routines that they've decided. And they will even reinforce that with things like, well, my mom used to tell me this, or this is traditional. We've always done it this way. It's been done for hundreds and thousands of years, or, etc. So again, the traditional idea. So people try and glue it together with other ideas to make it stick, whatever. And they're just ideas, sound good ideas. And people will even get emotional and start wars, get their neighbors and everything, and possibly get you out of the house and burn down your house just to get rid of you because you don't agree to their distortion. So, and then again, Obama ran on the change idea. You see, the world controllers, the elites, the cabal, they're very clever. They have a lot of fun at this. And so I remember seeing, they would pan the audience when Obama would talk, and especially the extra tan people in the United States would, they'd even be crying in the audience at times because they thought, oh, this is almost like their savior, this man, and how he talks, how elegantly he talks. And keep in mind, he's been rehearsed for many, many decades to do this, to get up on the world stage and to present this. It took a lot of rehearsing for him to get it to a particular, so that when he spoke, he got people to agree. And so all politicians go through this. They've got to go through a lot. Politicians have to prove themselves, and so Obama went through the same thing at a very young age. And so blatantly did things right out there that people knew about, but still was there. And so he ran on the idea of change. In other words, the way that he said it, but he really didn't define it. Okay, they really don't overall define it. They do, but they don't. And that is that the change that occurred under his administration, which not everybody saw, was a lot worse. He created wars, he destroyed people, etc., because that's the agenda. It only gets worse. And so with the present so-called president and then the ones in the future coming, it will only get worse. This is the whole idea, but they will still use their marketing ploy. So it's not a matter of change. This is a ploy, again, that people have been, indoctrinated with, have grown up with. This is the educational system. Look at the Indians, how they were raised. Okay, did the Indians get together and have powwows and say, oh, gee, okay, we're going to change the world. We're going to change the environment here because, you know what, it's not quite what we like. We want it different. Did they do that? No, they didn't do that. They didn't imply any change at all because they were using their instinct, their intuitive nature, and gaining insight to what was already taking place with life the best they could. You see how that makes sense? As opposed to, oh, let's just get up and let's just change everything, okay? Let's put these 10 teepees in a row over here and the 10 over here in a row here, and let's mow down this group of trees and let's build a road, okay? And so, no, they didn't do that. No, this is where the industrial consciousness came to the United States because they got the little pilgrims and everybody to agree to, oh, you want freedom and you want freedom religion and that? Okay, we got a new plot of ground for you to go on. And so you just go over there. But in the meantime, if there's any interference, just kind of push that back, get rid of them. You may meet some hostiles over there. They look friendly at first, but you know what? They're not that. Just push them back and put them in cages or on reservations. You see, again, the agenda, the premeditated, planned agenda of this place. And here we are a couple hundred years later, say 300 years, here it is. We're in it. We're in the middle of it. And we've partly agreed to this. We are wholeheartedly, etc. And that's all fine, too. So there has been a change. You're living it. Is it a good change? Is it better? Has it created a benefit? No, it's a lot worse, isn't it? So much for change. And so this idea, like hope, faith, and belief, in other words, Obama ran on hope, too. In other words, everybody's hoping it will get better. In other words, I've written so many times on this, and I will refer to it again. These are maybes. Maybe it'll get better. Things are only going to be better when the individual decides so within themselves. Doesn't mean you're going to change the world. We're not here to change the world. And again, we use this idea, oh, you're a wonderful person and you have these great ideas. Oh, you're going to change the world. That's not the idea. The phrases that people use in their own way are actually abrasive, but they don't see it. And it's that I believe in this or I believe in that. That goes nowhere. It's a matter of demonstrating and what you're doing. And so again, the leadership idea and the change idea, we'll go with that. You started off on that. Yes, is it there? Does it make sense? No, it's not even close. It's marketing ploy. So again, the reason that people don't want change is because for the most part, they do or they don't. Yeah, they want to change if it's to their advantage in their personal sense. But if it's not, okay, then they don't want the change. They want to stick with their same routines. And again, we came here to recognize the isness. Here's the opportunity, but who will stand up and have the courage to, contribute something that makes sense? Not just ideas that sound good. So again, what do people do for the most part? Because the fear factor is the basis of all the systems that have been created here. That wasn't the basis with the Indians. Yes, the kids might have been afraid. It's like, oh, they got to swim across the river. as a test. So that can be fearful. All right, that's one thing. But that fear, there wasn't fear produced because of it. That becomes the difference. These systems are all fear-based. It's taken a lot of lifetimes for all of us to get here, to be programmed enough to agree to the system. It takes a lot of lifetimes. It takes a lot to make a person evil. This is where, when supposedly the evil guys are gotten rid of, they're not. Adolf Hitler never blew up in the bunker. Hey, they know it takes a lot to get people to be evil, just like Charles Manson or whatever that's been prisoner for 50 years or what have you. They don't want to get rid of these people. And even if they do, it's usually a ploy they're really not getting rid of. They just place them somewhere else so they can keep doing their evil thing and be controlled by the big evil guys, you see? So again, look to the real side, but I don't use this leadership word or leadership with any of these things of these people, because again, I see a leader like the new leaders leading people to the isness life is, not some place in creation that you have to deal with, and there's more distortion. Even the happy hunting grounds you got to deal with, and most people get bored there, so they come back here because they haven't recognized the is. Once you do, this starts to take care of everything because it's endless. But again, so much for change and whatever. We're dealing with it here, but it is not what people think it is. It never is.